Consumer Reports just dropped a bombshell that the entire car industry did not see coming, and if you're in the market for a new or used car, this might be the most important update you'll hear all year. For the first time ever, their analysts are reporting numbers and patterns that have never been seen before in modern automotive history. We're talking about unheard of reliability swings, shocking resale crashes, and consumer behavior shifts that are rewriting the rules of car buying overnight. Automakers are scrambling, dealers are panicking, and buyers are finally waking up to a reality the industry hoped you'd never discover. According to Consumer Reports, the gap between the most reliable and least reliable brands has exploded like never before. Some brands that used to dominate the top of the list just collapsed, falling 10, 15, even 20 positions in a single year. Meanwhile, a few underdog brands you'd never expect suddenly rocketed to the top, leaving experts stunned. This isn't just a bad year or a market correction. Consumer Reports says it's a complete reshuffling of the automotive hierarchy, driven by rushed technology, poor software integration, and cost-cutting gone too far. But here's where things get even crazier. Consumer Reports says buyers are now reporting problems that simply didn't exist 5 years ago. Not engine issues, not transmission failures, software defects, glitches, electronic malfunctions, cars that shut down randomly, screens that freeze while driving, driver assist tech that misbehaves in ways engineers never predicted. Some brands are experiencing failure rates so high that Consumer Reports had to create new categories to track them. This is why their latest report is sending shockwaves through dealerships nationwide. Buyers are no longer just asking about horsepower or safety ratings. They're asking, is this car actually going to work the way it's supposed to? And the shock doesn't stop there, because Consumer Reports uncovered something the industry absolutely did not want public: a sudden and steep decline in long-term durability for several major automakers. Cars that were expected to last 200,000 miles are now showing critical problems at 60,000 or 80,000 miles. Repair costs are rising. Warranty claims are spiking. Owners are filing complaints at levels Consumer Reports has never recorded in its entire history of tracking vehicle reliability. If you felt like cars are breaking more often despite costing more than ever, Consumer Reports says you're right. But the most unbelievable part of this new report is what it reveals about used cars. Consumer Reports says the market is experiencing a bizarre and unprecedented divide. Some used models have tanked in value faster than any crash in recent memory, while others have become gold standards, selling way above expectations. It's not about brand loyalty anymore. It's about which companies invested in hardware and which ones gambled everything on rushed tech. Buyers are now ditching certain used EVs, avoiding problematic Turbo 4s, and running straight toward older, simpler, more reliable models. Consumer Reports calls it a consumer rebellion, and now dealerships are facing a nightmare scenario. The models they stocked up on last year, many of them are now the least demanded vehicles in the report. Cars they thought would be safe, bets are sitting unsold for 100, 150, even 200 days on lots. Meanwhile, unexpected models from brands nobody talked about a few years ago are flying off the market in hours. This shift is so dramatic that Consumer Reports says dealers may be forced to rewrite their entire strategy for 2025 and 2026 inventory planning. And the surprises just keep coming, because Consumer Reports is now warning that the next 12 months could be the most chaotic period the automotive market has ever seen, with reliability trends flipping, brand reputations collapsing, and customer expectations changing faster than automakers can respond. They're calling it the Great Realignment, a moment where the truth about which brands actually build dependable vehicles can no longer be hidden behind flashy features and marketing hype. And the most shocking part, Consumer Reports says this shift is happening because buyers have finally reached their breaking point. After years of rising prices, shrinking build quality, and overhyped tech, consumers are no longer willing to gamble on a badge. They want proof, not promises. That's why the new Consumer Reports research shows a massive spike in owners ditching their cars earlier than ever before. Some drivers are trading in vehicles after just 18 to 24 months because the problems have become too frustrating to live with. Others are reporting tech issues so severe that dealerships can't fix them, forcing manufacturers to quietly buy back cars to avoid public embarrassment. And while all of this chaos is happening, a small handful of brands are experiencing a wave of unexpected loyalty, with owners saying their cars just work while everything else keeps glitching out. This is the sort of divide Consumer Reports says they've never seen in the modern era of automotive technology. Even more surprising, the report uncovers a surge of consumers abandoning fully loaded models and returning to simpler trims. People are now choosing vehicles without panoramic roofs, without complicated infotainment systems, without advanced driver assistance packages, because the failure rate of these features is skyrocketing. Consumer Reports found that the more tech you add, the worse the long-term reliability becomes, and buyers are waking up to that reality fast. Dealerships are stunned because they've relied on high-margin, high-tech options to stay profitable. But now, customers are demanding basics, durability, clean software, fewer moving parts, and fewer things that can break. And this is where the market shock gets even bigger. Consumer Reports says some automakers are already preparing for a major strategy pivot, cutting back on flashy features, slowing down EV rollouts, reconsidering their software suppliers, and investing again in proven engines and drivetrains. This is a massive reversal from the trend of the last 5 years, and analysts say it's happening because the reliability crisis has finally hit a point where the data is undeniable. For the first time in decades, companies that chased innovation without testing are being punished by the very customers they thought they had locked in. But the most eyebrow-raising part of the report is what Consumer Reports discovered about how younger buyers are reshaping the entire market. For decades, millennials and Gen Z were expected to embrace tech-heavy vehicles, EVs loaded with screens, and cutting-edge driver assistance features. But Consumer Reports says that prediction has been completely shattered. These younger buyers are now the least tolerant of software glitches, and they're walking away from brands that overpromise and underdeliver. Many are choosing older, simpler used cars, models from 2012 to 2018, because they're cheaper to maintain, easier to repair, and far more predictable over time. This sudden generational shift has automakers scrambling in a panic, trying to figure out how the group that was supposed to lead the high-tech revolution has become the loudest voice demanding reliability first. And the shockwaves don't stop there, because Consumer Reports also found stunning data on owner satisfaction. For the first time ever, satisfaction has split into two extremes: cars that owners absolutely love and cars they absolutely regret buying. There's almost no middle ground anymore. Some vehicles, especially those rushed out during the post-2020 supply chain mess, are generating some of the worst long-term feedback the organization has ever recorded. Meanwhile, a few consistent performers are earning near-perfect satisfaction scores because owners say the cars do exactly what they're supposed to every single day. Consumer Reports calls this polarization a warning shot to automakers who have ignored reliability in their race for innovation. Then there's the part automakers hoped would stay buried. Consumer Reports uncovered a massive jump in hidden repair costs, especially for vehicles that are just outside warranty. Modern cars with complex electronics are hitting owners with repair bills that can exceed the value of the car itself. A single failed module, a malfunctioning battery pack, a broken digital cluster. These repairs can cost $3,000, $6,000, even $12,000 depending on the model. Consumer Reports says these costs are one of the main drivers behind the surge in owners abandoning their cars early, preferring to cut their losses rather than deal with unpredictable bills. And that reality is now reshaping resale markets at a speed nobody expected. But perhaps the most unsettling part of the entire report is the pattern Consumer Reports spotted in how automakers are quietly responding behind the scenes. Internal sources told them that several companies are now debating delaying upcoming models, rewriting software from scratch, and even outsourcing entire tech systems to avoid further disasters. Some are considering ditching certain EV programs altogether because the cost of fixing reliability issues could outweigh potential profits. This is the kind of behind-the-curtain shakeup Consumer Reports says they've never seen happen so suddenly. And now, the report hints at something even more dramatic brewing, an industry-wide shift that could completely reshape what kinds of vehicles get built in 2026, 2027, and beyond. Consumer Reports says early data suggests that automakers may be forced into a radical redesign of their entire product lineup sooner than anyone expected. Instead of doubling down on feature-packed, software-heavy vehicles, manufacturers are quietly preparing to return to simpler engineering. engineering. Cars with fewer screens, fewer sensors, fewer fragile digital components, and more emphasis on mechanical reliability. This is something the industry hasn't done in nearly 2 decades, and Consumer Reports believes this shift is being driven by sheer survival. Buyers are fed up, warranty costs are exploding, and automakers can no longer hide behind marketing buzzwords. The market is demanding vehicles that last, not vehicles that impress for the first 6 months. But what's even more shocking is the internal data Consumer Reports obtain, showing that some upcoming models, cars that were supposed to redefine their segments, are already being reconsidered by executives. Engineers have reportedly raised red flags about rushed software, unstable battery platforms, and unproven driver assist systems that could become reliability disasters. Consumer Reports says this behind-the-scenes tension is reaching a breaking point, with some engineers pushing for delays while marketing teams insist on keeping release dates to maintain hype. This internal conflict, they say, is the hidden battle that could shape the next era of the auto industry. At the same time, Consumer Reports uncovered something the public hasn't been told. Dealerships are pressuring automakers to scale back overly complex technologies. Dealers are reporting unprecedented levels of customer frustration, record warranty claims, and vehicles sitting in service bays for days or weeks waiting for software patches that still don't fix the core problems. Some dealerships have even stopped recommending certain models because the repair backlog is destroying their customer satisfaction scores. Consumer Reports says this is a dealership revolt, the first time in modern history that dealers are warning automakers their cars are becoming too complicated to sell confidently. And all of this is leading to a massive market split. On one side, brands that over-engineered and overhyped are watching their reputations collapse, while on the other side, brands that stuck to proven hardware and stable software are climbing to the top of the reliability rankings. Consumer Reports emphasizes that this divide will only grow in the next few years, and if automakers don't adjust fast, they risk losing an entire generation of buyers permanently. The ripple effects of this could reshape pricing, production, warranty policies, and even how cars are evaluated. But Consumer Reports hints that the biggest shock of all is still coming because their early projections show that. The brands expected to dominate the next decade may not be the ones you think. For years, industry experts predicted that EV-focused automakers, high-tech startups, and software-driven brands would lead the future. But Consumer Reports data points in the opposite direction. The next wave of top performers may actually be the manufacturers that kept things simple. Brands that focused on build quality, mechanical durability, and stable long-term performance instead of chasing the latest tech trends. This reversal is something Consumer Reports calls the most unexpected industry pivot in 30 years. And their projections don't stop at brands. They extend to entire vehicle categories. Consumer Reports suggests that certain segments are on the verge of collapse. Compact luxury SUVs loaded with fragile tech, declining fast. Overcomplicated EV crossovers with glitch-prone interfaces, losing consumer trust. Meanwhile, categories that were once considered boring, like mid-size sedans, body-on-frame SUVs, and traditional hybrids, are regaining massive popularity because they're proving far more reliable in real-world use. Consumer Reports says these shifts are so extreme that they may force automakers to completely rework their production priorities for the next model cycle. Then comes the part automakers definitely didn't want exposed. Consumer Reports has early evidence that some companies have been quietly lobbying for more lenient testing standards on software-related issues. Why? Because failure rates are climbing so fast that brands fear their vehicles won't meet current reliability benchmarks. Instead of addressing the root problems, rushed programming, under-tested updates, and complex systems stacked on top of fragile hardware, some manufacturers are hoping the standards themselves will be changed. Consumer Reports calls this attempt a red alert, warning that the industry is at risk of putting convenience ahead of accountability. Meanwhile, a growing wave of owner complaints is hitting Consumer Reports with unprecedented force. Drivers are reporting everything from sudden screen blackouts to vehicles refusing to start because of corrupted software. Others are experiencing random warnings, braking issues tied to faulty sensors, or driver assist features that behave unpredictably. And with every new complaint, the pressure on automakers intensifies. Consumer Reports says these complaints are no longer isolated. They're forming patterns that point point to systemic flaws across entire lineups, and the data they're preparing to release next may expose problems far deeper than anyone realized. But what's truly shocking is Consumer Reports' early warning forecast about the long-term consequences of all this. They believe the current reliability crisis could trigger, but what's truly shocking is Consumer Reports' early warning forecast about the long-term consequences of all this. They believe the current reliability crisis could trigger a full-scale restructuring of the automotive market, something not seen since the financial meltdown of 2008. This time, however, the threat isn't economic pressure, it's consumer rejection. If buyers continue abandoning tech-heavy, failure-prone models at the current pace, automakers may be forced to kill off entire product lines, shut down underperforming divisions, and overhaul engineering teams from the ground up. Consumer Reports warns that brands ignoring these warning signs could face a loyalty collapse so severe it might take decades to recover. And here's where the story gets even more intense. Consumer Reports says that insurance companies have already begun reacting to the reliability trends, quietly adjusting premiums based on which vehicles are more likely to have software-related failures. Cars with complicated sensor suites and fragile digital components are seeing higher insurance costs, while simpler, mechanically dependable models are getting preferred rates. This is a hidden cost automakers hoped would go unnoticed, but Consumer Reports says it could soon hit buyers hard. If a car is already glitchy and expensive to fix, higher insurance premiums could be the final blow that pushes customers away entirely. This ties directly into another trend Consumer Reports found: the rapid rise of tech fatigue. Drivers who once loved futuristic features are now complaining that new cars feel overwhelming, distracting, and overly sensitive. Alerts that won't stop, warnings that constantly trigger, systems that take control at the wrong time. Consumer Reports says drivers are reporting that their vehicles feel more like unstable computers on wheels than reliable machines. This fatigue is becoming so widespread that some automakers are considering simplifying their interfaces and removing non-essential tech from upcoming models. It's a quiet admission that they pushed too far, too fast. But then there's the market twist no one saw coming. Consumer Reports discovered that older, pre-2015 models are surging in desirability and value, not because they're cheap, but because they're dependable. These vehicles, built before the explosion of fragile tech and software integration, are holding their value better than many newer models. Some owners are refusing to sell them even when offered above market prices. This strange dynamic is creating a reverse depreciation curve, something Consumer Reports says they have never recorded before at this scale. And according to the latest projections, this trend may pressure automakers to go back to the drawing board, rethinking batteries, rethinking infotainment systems, and rethinking which technologies truly belong in a daily use vehicle. Consumer Reports hints that the next stage of their investigation will expose something even deeper, an internal industry struggle over what the future of the automobile should be. Some automakers are doubling down on high-tech, fully digital vehicles, convinced that software can eventually be perfected, but others are preparing for a dramatic shift back toward durability, serviceability, and minimalist engineering. Consumer Reports says leaked internal memos reveal engineers pushing back harder than ever, arguing that the industry lost sight of what made cars trustworthy in the first place: predictable hardware, straightforward systems, and components that last hundreds of thousands of miles without constant updates or recalibration. What makes this especially explosive is that Consumer Reports believes we're on the verge of a reliability renaissance, but only for the companies willing to make the tough decisions. They point to early designs in development that focus on long-life batteries, simpler driver interfaces, and mechanical systems engineered to outlive the complicated tech of the last decade. If these projects move forward, the next generation of vehicles could be the most dependable in modern history, a total reversal of the downward trend we've seen since 2019. But the report also warns that not every automaker will take this path. Some are stubbornly sticking to tech-heavy strategies, betting everything on software fixes that may never stabilize. And this brings us to perhaps the most unnerving discovery of all. Consumer Reports has identified a widening gap between the cars automakers advertise and the cars they actually deliver. Marketing teams are promoting futuristic capabilities, self-driving features, AI-powered interfaces, seamless connectivity, while engineers behind the scenes admit these systems are nowhere near ready for real-world durability. Consumer Reports says this disconnect is creating unrealistic expectations, disappointed buyers, and an erosion of trust that could damage brand reputations for years to come. They warn that unless automakers realign their promises with their engineering capabilities, customer backlash will only intensify. On top of that, Consumer Reports is tracking a surge in what they call phantom failures, issues triggered not by broken hardware, but by flawed updates pushed automatically to vehicles. Owners are waking up to cars that behave differently overnight. Some features disappear, others malfunction. In rare cases, vehicles become undrivable until a new patch arrives. Consumer Reports says this phenomenon represents a new frontier of reliability risk, one that the industry has no established system for managing. It's a problem that didn't exist in traditional cars, and it's growing faster than manufacturers can contain it. And as this chaos unfolds, Consumer Reports says the next wave of market disruption could come from a direction nobody is discussing yet, a major shift in how consumers evaluate value, quality, and longevity. Early indicators show that buyers are starting to prioritize long-term ownership value more aggressively than at any point in the last 20 years. Consumer Reports says people are no longer asking, how fast is it? Or what tech does it have? Instead, they're asking, how long will this car last? And what will this cost me at 150,000 miles? This shift in mindset is seismic because it completely rewires the incentives for automakers. Flashy features don't move cars anymore. Durability does. And for brands that cut corners during the supply chain crunch, this could be devastating. Consumer Reports warns that as ownership cycles lengthen, unreliable models will be exposed faster and punished harder than ever before. But here's where the shock gets even bigger. Consumer Reports research shows that buyers are now conducting more pre-purchase research and watching more online reviews, breakdown reports, and owner forums than at any time in history. Social media is accelerating the spread of reliability horror stories, and once a model gets a reputation for failing early, that reputation sticks hard. This means automakers no longer have years to correct mistakes. One bad model year can tank the next 3. Consumer Reports says this new instant accountability era is something manufacturers are dangerously unprepared for.